his case, Matthew that is, he also received profit from managing other tax collectors, which is why he is referred to by Luke as a chief tax collector. He is not liked too well in the community where he lives. He is not welcomed in the synagogue for worship. And most of his friends are other people whose lives have been judged similar to his own. The general category they put on people like him is sinners. But when Jesus passes his tax collecting booth that day and invites him to close it down and to follow him, he immediately responds, of course, having heard Jesus speak before, being inspired by his words, probably having a recurring thought to himself that he so desperately needs to address his spiritual condition since he could not go to church. He jumps at the opportunity. He shuts down his tax collecting booth and makes the decision, I am going to follow Jesus. And the first thing he does right after that is to invite Jesus over to his house for dinner, with the intent being to invite others who will celebrate with him the decision he has made, and he does. He honors Jesus at the dinner, and Matthew wants everybody to know that when you are looking at this man who has changed my life, this is the Messiah, the one sent from God. In the home of Matthew are now other tax collectors, and the physician Luke simply says some others, and before the celebration can progress too far, those Pharisees start in on Jesus. They approach his disciples and they start complaining. Why does Jesus eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners? This question is intended to raise suspicions about Jesus' authenticity and legitimacy as a moral and spiritual leader, because he's hanging out with these spiritually unacceptable people. And Jesus paints the most gripping picture of how we should see ourselves, how we should see him, and how we should see his word. He says, as an answer to the question, why is he at dinner with tax collectors and sinners? Because, Jesus says, I am like a doctor. And if I am standing between a healthy person, as you Pharisees think you are in your own eyes, and a sick person as you view these that I'm enjoying dinner with, which one needs me more? And of course, the answer is the sick person. And then Jesus makes the application. In my shop talk, we call it the hermeneutic. I am here because I am the great physician. I'm the eternal spiritual doctor. And I'm practicing medicine on these people who are sick from spiritual neglect, and these that have been impacted by you Pharisees' malpractice. You're guilty of not letting them in your church to hear what could make them holy and healthy. At the dinner, I am writing out prescriptions, I am administering dosages, and I'm reversing symptoms. This portrait Jesus paints of himself is a window out of which we peer to more deeply understand his relationship to us. Savior, yes. Lord, yes. Sustainer, provider, defender, healer, sanctifier, redeemer, all of these, yes, and more. But Luke recounts that Jesus himself suggests that he is a physician. I know immediately that this means that our spiritual condition, no matter its current state, is not just a religious and moral consideration. And here is what I'm trying to point out this weekend. Our spirituality is not just a religious and moral consideration. Our spirituality is also a health consideration. And I'm not sure how many of you think of your relationship with Jesus as a health issue, but it is. The condition of my spiritual life can define my wellness. The condition of my spiritual life can also define my sickness. And Jesus is moving around the dinner, meeting people who are living in unhealthy environments and among unhealthy people living with unhealthy inner life conditions, and it sickens them to the point where it affects how they relate to other people, how they see themselves, how they see their futures, how they paint portraits of fulfilled lived experiences. And Jesus reveals that despite their sicknesses, they need not worry, because at this dinner, even though I show up as a Savior and a Lord and a defender and a sustainer, I show up to this dinner also as a doctor. And he invites them to know him. Why does he do it? So we can live well, so we can live healthy, both spiritually and in our daily matriculation through the very marketplaces where you and I have been stationed. We need Jesus to be our physician, because our lived experiences have so many threatening realities that can infect and sicken and place us in peril. But we have a great physician. And I don't know if you think of your spirituality as a matter of health. I'm not sure if you see your relationship with Jesus as important for your mental health as well as your physical health. But the encouragement is to consider it. This is what makes your spirituality more than merely ritual practice. You don't crowd in this sanctuary on a weekly basis just to honor your religious practice. You make your way to Zion because this is one of the best ways to live healthy. Do I have a witness? Your spirituality is a matter of health. This great physician, he helps me balance life, live between these realms that the Bible describes as the spiritual and the natural realm. This great physician helps me keep in perspective exactly who I am, so I don't think too highly of myself, neither do I think too low of myself. This great physician helps me to walk through the world. He teaches me how to interact with others. What do I absorb from these exchanges I have with people, and what can and cannot be internalized? Jesus is the doctor. He helps me remember the eternal purpose in my life, and that ensures that I don't mess around and become too infected by certain seasons that are rough and painful. This physician helps me to process my confusion. He helps me to deal with my hurt. He helps me to overcome my pain. He helps me to sift through my ambitions. He helps me to order my goals and to suppress some of my drives. Do I have any company here? And with so many human options and so much desire, it's Jesus, the physician, that makes sure that I don't starve from neglect or choke on an overinflated opinion of myself. The physician prescribes certain circumstances because those circumstances are intended to grow me. The physician creates certain introductions knowing that they will breed agitation, but the agitations will challenge me. The physician orders certain intersections to force certain decisions out of me because I would not make those decisions under any other circumstances. This great physician orders certain successes and failures to push me to trust my gifts and to stop relying only on my talent and my ability. He prescribes at times highly intense exchanges with people so I don't overdose on relationships and mistake transactional relationships for relationships that are deeply intimate. And so I don't get twisted. This great physician makes sure that I have certain agitations with people around me, get in certain arguments and disagreements so that I can sift between those who are real and those who are only assigned for a season. Am I talking to anybody in this room?
He advises a spiritual diet that keeps my gifts stirred. And when I'm facing really tough human life experiences and realities that are not working always in my favor, he administers a heavy dosage of spiritual peace. And I know when I'm on it because it surpasses all human understanding. He says, my peace I prescribe to you, not as the world gives, give I unto you. It's not the healthy who need a doctor. You Pharisees, that's who you think you are. You won't even accept my diagnosis. You won't even take what I prescribe because of the cloudy lens out of which you perceive yourself. So I'm not here for you. I'm here for the sick. Because the conditions they live with make them open and ready to receive. And I have too much medicine to prescribe for them to stay sick. I was asked the most interesting question this past week. And it so perplexed me. It stayed on my mind after the conversation was over. A really close pastoring brother, friend of mine, asked me, hey, Bill, if you were the singular shaper of the church today, what would be your focus? And what would you change first? And to both, the immediate answer I spewed was I would require more preaching, teaching, worshiping, centered on Jesus and far less centered on us. It would be more about the lordship of Jesus, less about our cultural circumstances, our political issues, our gender and sexual identity issues. I understand the need to express our worth and our value, our strengths and our potential. I know that we've got to speak truth to power, and I know we have issues related to race and politics. Trust me, I get it. We need to be reminded of our inheritance and our spiritual status. We need to be told on a repetitive basis that we've got victory and we walk with spiritual might. And I too celebrate the blessings and favor and open doors that God extends to us, but those are not primary. What becomes primary is the lordship and the atoning sacrifice of Jesus. Because unless we had been made alive in Jesus, we would still be floating dead in trespasses and sins, so that it matters not as much. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It matters not as much. Some of these peripheral things that I have mentioned. When we come to church, I agree. We need to be encouraged. We need to be motivated. We need self-esteem building. We need character building and training. All of that notwithstanding. But all of that is enveloped under the lordship of Jesus Christ. When we come into this room, we come in here to acknowledge that Jesus is the undeniable, indisputable, irrefutable, singular Son of the living God.